what's like the biggest financial disaster you've ever gone through?
We met at the paper mill, we worked at the paper mill, and when we left, we made about $400,000 a year. So we were making a lot of money at a young age. I was 32 and she was 26. And I left to come work for dad and made 60. So, like,
Whew.
you can imagine the struggle that that caused and honestly, the stress that it caused because in my entire life, my entire 32 years, I had never seen a bank account go down every month.
Yep.
But we actually, during that time, saw our net worth increase, not decrease. That is the power of investing, right? To me, the highest form of investment and the greatest amount of return isn't the stock market. It's not Bitcoin. It's, it's none of those things. It's
All right. Today I am joined by millionaire John Goose Dunham. Love the nickname, by the way. Makes me think of Top Gun.
everybody thinks of Top Gun. My dad gave it to me because he said I was silly as a goose at 5 years old, and it stuck. So here I am at 38 and still rocking a nickname.
That's awesome. So I'm excited, Goose, to hear a little bit more about your blue collar background as an engineer in the construction field, and then more about what you're doing now as well. But maybe we can start with that first piece. I'm really curious to know early in your career, how did you get your start? What industry did you decide to pursue your career in, and what did that look like?
So when I went into college, I was destined to be an orthopedic surgeon. I had a lot of injuries from football and school. Quickly decided that 8 years in school seemed like an absolute horrible, horrible time for me. And so I went into engineering instead. Loved chemistry, loved math. It fit, got into the classes. They were awesome. Of course, I come out in 2010. And if anybody remembers what's happening in 2010, nobody is hiring. And so my option was paper industry because they were the only ones hiring because they did a terrible hiring in the previous 10 years, or go back to school. And I had already decided I did not want to go back to school. So I took the first and only job offer I had. Um, and it was as a process engineer for International Paper. Got into the industry. Absolutely. I loved it. A lot of problem solving, lots of hands on, lots of dealing with blue collared people. And it really just fit me. I got to wear jeans to work every day. That was fantastic. I got to wear a t shirt if I wanted to every day. That was awesome. So, yeah, really, that's how I got into the engineering side of things.
Wow. Okay. So I have a current client of mine that's a process engineer, and he works for a cement company. And it's just crazy. Like, we'll hop on calls together. He'll be describing his work day, and he's like, yeah, the plant caught on fire today because there were some carbon emissions that got clogged in a pipe. So I was working overtime all weekend, but overall it was pretty chill. And I'm like, what do you mean that was pretty chill? You're literally putting out fires at work.
It like every day was something different, and it's like it wasn't whether it was going to be a bad day, it was like how bad was it going to be, but it was always going to be interesting. Like that is for certain. When you're in that type of environment, it's always going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you got your start with this paper company and working as an engineer. How did you start building wealth for yourself?
So that's actually a very interesting question because I started really early. My dad was in the industry for 40 years in the wealth management industry. And he had started me a custodial brokerage account when I was a kid. At about 13, I would see the statements come in. They'd have my name on them, so I'd open them up. And they had like two mutual funds in them. It had like $2,000 in it. I don't know. I went to him one day and said, Dad, like these things aren't moving. Like I need to see some movement in this money. And so whether this was a good idea or a really, really bad one from him, he allowed me to take over the management of my custodial brokerage account.
At 13
And
years old.
at 13 years old. So I bought my first stock at 13. It was American Eagle. I chose it because I went and I exclusively shopped at American Eagle when I was 13, right? Had a really good experience with it. It split like three times. So it'd go up, split, go up, split. I think I sold it like 4 or 5 years later when I stopped shopping at American Eagle. But what that did was all of my yard money I started pouring into the stock market. So, like, instead of going and buying a toy, I'd go buy a new stock. And like that's really how I got my start, was fell in love with investing. Talk about Jim Cramer if you want to. I read all of his books at like 14 years old, like learned about P's, learned about financial statements, learned about all this different stuff. And yeah, just fell in love with investing at a very, very young age.
Wow. Well, you had a very forward-thinking dad to set you up with a custodial account by the time you were 13 years old. That's just crazy.
Yeah. And even more forward thinking to think that he's going to give it control to me. So I actually still manage a portion of mine in individual stocks because I love it.
You know, as I've been interviewing different millionaires over the last couple weeks, I've noticed a lot of common trends, and you just illustrated two that I keep seeing. The first one is the importance of failing early. I think it's safe to say that you got maybe a little bit lucky with American Eagle, that it
I
was
did.
really successful. But your dad wasn't afraid to let you fail early and learn those mistakes when there's only $2,000 on the line instead of $200,000 on the line 10 or 20 years later.
It certainly gave me an appreciation for compounding growth, the stock market, how it goes up and down, so that at 14 or 15, I learned that it's okay for things to go up and down. Like that's normal occurrence. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just is what happens. And it certainly gave me a risk tolerance to watch my accounts go up and down.
Yeah. So you're a teenager, you're investing in individual stocks in your own brokerage account. How did you educate yourself so that you knew you'd be making smart decisions?
A little bit of a lot. So like I said, I read a lot of books. I read a lot of the Jim Cramer books. I watched Jim Cramer on Mad Money. A lot of people says you shouldn't. I found him very interesting. He kept my interest level up. And so that's when I started digging into the actual financial statements after that, understanding value versus growth and what matters, and then researching the company and listening to earnings calls. And like everybody tells me I'm such a nerd for wanting to listen to an earnings call, but they're so important. And like that's one of the things I took from watching Jim Cramer was, hey, if you're not willing to do the research, you shouldn't be investing in individual stocks, because you got to know the trajectory of the company and you got to make the decision for yourself. And so I'd watch earnings calls and then I'd dig into what they said. I never owned a lot of different stocks. Like now I think I own like 10. Back then I'd owe like 4 or 5, just so that I could keep up with all of them. And the more I looked into them, the more I studied them, the more I learned, and then it was kind of this evolving cycle. Yeah, it was just a long time of working at it and making mistakes and watching a company go bankrupt. Uh, so I mean I did. I watched a company I invested in go bankrupt. That was not a good feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, so you had that experience where some money that you invested literally went down to zero. That can be traumatizing for anyone.
It certainly could be. I blamed it on dad because he was like, "You should look at this company." And but needless to say, I learned that individual stocks do have risk to them, right? That not everything goes up, and I think it was a valuable lesson. I think that happened when I was like 15. So I had enough success early that it didn't deter me to continue to go after it.
Wow. You know, it's funny. I actually had a similar experience of how I first got started investing myself. I think I was like 20 years old at the time, so not quite 13, but I had come home for Christmas and my dad decided that we were going to have a family stock market competition. So for Christmas that year, each of us five kids got an individual stock that my dad had he helped us open our first brokerage account and he gifted each of us a stock that was valued at about $100. And I got ExxonMobil was the first stock I ever owned. You know, I basically watched it stay completely stable over the course of the next year, didn't trade it. my brother got his stock immediately, like sold it multiple times, ended up investing in Adobe. Their company like stock valuation literally doubled that year. And he's like this little 16-year-old kid. So I was pissed that my younger brother beat me.
Well, I think that it shows like having some guidance from parents and like again, let's make mistakes with small amounts of money so you don't make mistakes with large amounts of money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge part of it. So you learned from your dad early on, and I think that's another key trend that I'm noticing here with millionaires is that even people that don't have a background in finance are financially educated and they understand how things work so they can make smart investments. I want to know, at what age did you first become a millionaire if you started investing when you were 13?
So when I look, I'm going to say it was around 32.
All right.
And that was really a lot of that was driven by the housing just during COVID boom, housing prices went up. So yeah, I watched my house appreciate by about 200,000 dollars in about 2 years. So that really helped throw me over that threshold. But what's interesting to me is I didn't really feel like a millionaire at that point. And I still sometimes I won't say that I still feel like a millionaire because it wasn't liquid, right? You have
Yeah.
three or $400,000 wrapped up in this house that you can't access. When I really started feeling it was actually maybe last year when I actually saw my investable assets reach $1 million. So now between 401k, traditional brokerage accounts, Roth IRA, I've got $1 million sitting there. And like now when you can see it on paper, and it's like I could access that if I wanted to or needed to. That's kind of when it felt a little different.
Yeah, it's like I might have to pay a 10% penalty, but I'm 3 clicks away from having $1 million in my bank account, that type of
That's right.
feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your current net worth and like how does that, break down in terms of home equity, investments, etc.?
So I'm gonna estimate it at about two and a half, which is honestly is really crazy to think that and that's how quick things can go like compounding. Like you think about it and you're just like, it's the eighth wonder of the world. And it's like it wasn't but 5 years ago that I hit 1 million. So, and now I'm at two and a half, right? So about 1.2 is in investable assets. Another probably 600 it is in home equity. Actually, I own two houses. I own my home that I live in, and then I have a mountain house in North Carolina. And then about let's call it another 800 or so in the business that I'm in now to 1 million depends on I guess it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the business net worth is probably 800,000 dollars. I still owe my dad on some of it. And so there's that debt that I got to take out. So I'm going to call it 800.
Wow. Okay. So you've got a pretty nice spread there, pretty even spread between home equity, your retirement accounts and investments, and then also business ownership.
Yeah. It's been a while. I'll tell you, it's been a wild ride. And I think it's been a fun ride, but it's certainly been a wild ride to get to where I'm at.
What would you say is the biggest financial thrill that you've ever experienced? And then what's like the biggest financial disaster you've ever gone through?
The biggest financial thrill, and this is going to sound crazy, but like buying American Eagle and watching it split at like 13 years old and watching like essentially my money double because it had doubled and then like yeah, it was only like a couple $100, but like that was like really exciting for me. And it's like really gave me this passion to continue. Also buying that first home, and you just feel like kind of feel like you've made it when you buy your first home. Clearly a little bit more difficult now than it was then when I bought, but like that was a true thrill too. Fun fact that also helped me get to where I was. I bought a 5 bedroom house as a single 24-year-old, and then I rented out 3 rooms, and then I maxed out my 401k after I rented out those 3 rooms. So like utilized my early like investing and building that net worth to buy the home that just compounded my ability to invest because instead of going to spend that 15 or $1,600 of rent I got every month. I just poured it back into the stock market. So that was a little fun fact. Let's see, my biggest fail. I don't know if I could say I had one gigantic fail outside of the stock that went to zero. So I think I lost like $1,000 there. That was hard. I bought Fitbit. I lost a lot of money on Fitbit. So I've got like stocks that like just stick with me. It's amazing how the losers lost a lot of money on Alibaba. You can make good decisions with the information in front of you. There's a lot of information that you don't know what's going on in the back end, right? And that's what it teaches you is the stock market from a picking individual stocks is gambling. It's more effective gambling, and you can make better decisions than you can at a craps table, but it's still gambling. So my biggest financial struggle was when I decided 4 years ago. My daughter turned 4 yesterday. And
Congratulations.
thank you. So 4 years ago, we decided that we were going to give up everything that we had worked for to go build something new. So my wife also was in engineering. We met at the paper mill. We worked at the paper mill. And when we left, we made about $400,000 a year. So we were making a lot of money at a young age. I was 32 and she was 26. So we were making a lot of money. And I left to come work for dad and made 60. So like
Whew.
you can imagine the struggle that caused and honestly the stress that it caused because in my entire life, my entire 32 years, I had never seen a bank account go down every month.
Yep.
And that was a really and we were used to this way of living and now we're trying to live over here and we never could quite get to a $60,000 a year lifestyle and that was put a lot of stress. It was very, very difficult. And like trying to work through that was easily my biggest financial struggle.
Wow. Yeah. Trying to it's always easier to increase your lifestyle than it is to reduce it.
A hundred
So I'm
percent.
just imagining going from $400,000 of income to $60,000 of income.
It was we should have reached out for more help than we did because it was for about 2 years, it was a very, very big struggle. I think the beauty of it was we made it through, like we made it through the other side. We didn't kill each other, so that was great. But we actually during that time saw our net worth increase, not decrease. That is the power of investing, right? Is we never touched our assets. We had this we had built up a cash account. They were like, this is where we're pulling from, and we got to be okay with it going down in value. Got lucky because we sold our house and we moved from Chattanooga. We sold our house in Chattanooga for about 700,000 and bought a $400,000 house. So like we had instant equity there, and and that's what we did. We let our investments grow. We lived off this cash account, knowing that we would build something bigger at some point, and that things would turn around. Made decisions not to invest in retirement accounts at that point because we honestly just we couldn't afford to do it. And yeah, so like that, I learned a lot that honestly prepared me to help people now because I've done it. Like I've gone through that heartache. I've gone through almost like a retirement, right?
Yeah.
Go into it from a paycheck to really having nothing. Like how do you make it work? How do you draw from different accounts so that you can still live your life without being overly stressed? So it was a wild ride.
For anyone that hasn't experienced that, it's a real psychological challenge. And I feel like I'm just talking to my brother here because I've gone through the exact same thing you described when I started my own business 2.5 years ago. Went from making a healthy income as an account executive working in tech sales to quitting my job and having one paid client at the time and basically having my income go all the way down to zero. And it was the same thing. It was like, okay, this is how much I've got in my cash account and this is my plan. We're drawing this down on purpose because I'm trying to create something for myself. But even knowing that does not make it any easier in the moment.
It's a psychological and emotional roller coaster. And I don't know whether you struggle this with or not. I really struggled with I went from a job I was really good at to a job that I hadn't really become good at yet.
Mm.
And so that validation was the lack of validation that I was getting now from a job that I knew I was good at. I could walk in every day and crush it to a job that I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? And like, how do I get in front of people? Like, am I cut out for this? So like it was both an emotional and psychological, just real big it was just a mind it screwed with my mind for a year at least.
Yeah, and I mean, you come home, you lay down at night, you try to fall asleep, and your mind is just racing with these thoughts of, "Am I actually gonna make it? Was this the worst decision I've ever made?"
Many, many nights was this the worst decision I've ever made. I had many of those nights.
Yeah, and then eventually you get through it and you're like, "Oh, I'm okay now."
Yeah, it was the right decision. 2 years of it said it may not have been, but I'm healthy now. I'm good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Okay, so I wanna pull out some key principles here that I'm hearing from you in this story. The first one is when you set yourself up with a really solid financial foundation where you have cash savings, you have equity in your home, etc., you're able to take calculated risks. And the key word here is calculated. You're not just going into it blindly, but you're mapping out for yourself, where are my cutoff points? What am I comfortable pursuing? And then leads into key point here number two, which is a lot of these millionaires I've been talking to have mentioned the importance of being willing to bet on yourself and believe in yourself to make that jump, to take that risk, because you really do believe that you're capable of creating a positive outcome from that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think people don't invest in themselves enough, right? And it could be taking a calculated risk and going and starting your business. It could be taking some of your income and hiring a career coach so that you can become the best that you are in whatever career you love, right? But to me, the highest form of investment and the greatest amount of return isn't the stock market, it's not Bitcoin, it's none of those things. It's where do I need to work on and how do I invest in that area of my life so that I can become the best person that I can be, the best employee I can be, or for some of us, the best business owner I can be. The returns there are astronomical. I mean, you're talking you could double your salary in 3 or 4 years, right? And that just continues to that just doesn't stop, right? Like, I mean, very rarely does the stock market double in 3 years. Like that just doesn't happen. Like a great return and you double it in six, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, where do you bet? You should bet on yourself. Like, and that should be a portion of where you invest is invest in yourself.
I 100% wholeheartedly agree. So many different levels. You know yourself really well. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and you're always going to know yourself better than you know some random company that you're investing into. So it makes sense that you should be able to get outsized returns by betting on yourself. I have a friend that he likes to share this quote. He says, "When you focus on the process of becoming, success becomes inevitable." And so it's the idea of if you're becoming the best version of yourself, then the success will naturally follow that because you're putting in the work to make it happen.
Yeah, people don't buy into what you've done. They buy into the person that did it, right? And that it doesn't matter whether you're in your business, they buy into you. Yes, they may come to you for a certain thing they're struggling with, but they hire you because they buy into you. They stay with you because they buy into you. And there's no difference for me here or when I was in the mill. Like the reason I went from a $60,000 salary to a $250,000 salary over the course of 12 years. So you do the math, that's 4x what I
Yeah.
started out at was because I had people that bought into me and knew that whatever challenge they threw at me, I was going to accomplish it. And so therefore the salary came with it, right? And I think so often people focus on the outcome versus how you get there,
Mhm.
right?
So, if I'm someone listening to this right now and I'm starting to realize maybe I need to invest in myself more, what's a good way to do that? How could I start to develop that muscle of investing in myself?
That's a great question, and I'm probably gonna throw a curveball at you. Um, I would actually start with individual therapy. I think that especially guys and men, there's still a stigma around that aspect of things, but I started individual therapy probably 2 years ago, and it transformed the way I looked at myself so that I could actually have an accurate opinion of myself. And then I could identify the areas that I really, really needed to work on. It's a relatively inexpensive way to invest in yourself because a lot of times insurance will cover a lot of it. So maybe you're looking at 50 or $100 a session. So, at the end of the day, a couple $1,000s a year versus a good career coach is probably going to be 6 to 10. And you don't know, like they're going to want that up front, right?
Mhm.
But like, I think individual therapy is a great way to start because it teaches you about yourself. Then from there, that kind of gets you a gateway into, okay, these are the areas that I need most help with. Now, when I go to a career coach, I have a very clear vision of what I'm looking for so that you know that the likelihood of you hiring the right person is higher than if you just were like, hey, I'm going to go hire X, Y, and Z. I also love listening to books. So, whether it's Seven Habits or Atomic Habits or whatever it may be, I think there's so many books out there that are absolutely incredible when it comes to like teaching yourself what you should look like and then identifying where you struggle.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Very powerful, by the way. Not the answer I was expecting to your point, but I love it because I agree with you. And I think that when you do something like therapy, and I actually kind of think of therapy just as developing emotional intelligence,
100%.
where you have greater self awareness, that you understand how you react to different circumstances, what emotions you're experiencing, and how those influence the decisions that you make in your life. And that is going to have a huge ROI in terms of how you show up in your career, how you show up in your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends. Like it's going to touch every single aspect of your life.
Every aspect of your life that matters to you, right?
Yeah.
So like it to me it's the most inexpensive way to make a huge huge impact.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I want to shift into a different question here, maybe a little bit more tactical. So, you now work as a financial advisor and you probably manage money for a lot of wealthy engineers or people that are building wealth. What's the number one mistake that people make with their money that you just see, in your clients or other people that you've interacted with?
Okay, the number one mistake I see, and it's normally from people I talk to, is don't seek advice early enough.
Mm,
Problems are typically more expensive to fix than they were if they were done right in the first place, right? I experienced it myself. I never asked for help, even though I had a dad in the business. I never asked for help. I did it myself, and then I get in this business and I start going down the planning route, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have made so many mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, and it literally it's hard to think like how can somebody at 38 who's worth $2 million, $2+ million say he made a lot of mistakes? And the fact is, I did, and it may not impact my wealth now, but it will impact my wealth in the future. So I would say seek advice before you need it. There are plenty of people out there that will give you advice either on a consultation basis for a fee, or for me, like I do financial planning for a fee. And I have yet to meet somebody that I didn't make a huge impact on their future net worth because of the strategies that we talked through. The second problem I see is people don't automate their savings
mm,
and they don't view it as a bill. For me, one of the things that I always did was I always treated saving as a bill that I had to pay every single month. Every paycheck that came in, there was a certain amount that automatically went into a savings account. There was a portion of it that automatically went into my investment account. So I had two different savings, one for saving to build that cash hoard so that I could do whatever I wanted to do, right? For vacations, for whatever it may be. And then one of it was, hey, this is my investment account. I don't intend to touch this account. This is for the future. And I always put money into it. So those are the two things that I see is rarely do people automate it. And it's the easiest, most effective way to build your wealth is to not think about it.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly, like, let's you can just start so small. Like, going back to your point of atomic habits, you could start with a 1% contribution to your savings, and you're never gonna notice that it's gone.
Never.
And then the next year, if you move that from 1 to 2%, you're never gonna notice that 2% has gone instead of 1%. Like, you don't have to start by dumping thousands of dollars a month into investments. It's actually better
Yeah.
to start small.
You're it's like dieting. If you go on a crash diet, you may stick with it for a week, and if you're really good, you'll stick with it in 2 weeks. You start to fall off the bandwagon because you just can't do it anymore. Your body's not meant to do that. And finances are really no different than dieting. Saving is the diet, right?
Mhm.
And if you change your lifestyle habits by starting small, something you may or may not notice, then it's very easy to build upon that. So again, you don't notice the change, but in 20, 30, 40 years, you're like, "Dadgum, did I do this?"
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah, that's oh man, that is so cool. I feel like you've already shared so many good nuggets of wisdom today. There's one more area of your story I would love to look a little bit more into if we have time for it. Is that okay?
yeah, yeah, sounds great.
Okay. So you mentioned you went from making $400,000 a year as a family. It sounds like you were making about 250, your wife was making 150. And then she left her job, is that right? And you started making 60?
Yes, so she decided when we had our little girl that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, so my daughter was 6 months, I do recommend this if you do make a huge career change, give your employer plenty of time. I gave my employer 6 months notice and said, "Hey, I'm changing careers. I wanna make sure you guys get the right person." But yes, after about 6 months, I left. Fun fact, I chose the day to be my last day, so I was in the paper industry exactly 12 years.
Wow.
So I started on June 1st and my last day was May 31st. So just fun fact, I was in there exactly 12 years. Um, and I came to work for dad, making $60,000 a year.
Okay. So I just want to go there for a second. Your wife leaves her job. Your new parents with a newborn at home, and you have just gone through the most dramatic career change of your life. Your expenses are way higher than your income. I think there are so many people that can relate to this that are new parents that are struggling to save money consistently, that are struggling to invest. What would your advice be for someone in your shoes in that situation? Like, how do you how do you manage that stress in your life, and how do you get to a point where you can start consistently saving and investing again?
So the first thing I would say and probably the most dramatic thing was the emotional impact of it on both of us, right? That was so many stressors to throw at somebody at one time. Like any one of them would be a stressor, career change stressor, new parents stressor, new city stressor, like huge pay cut stressor. Like looking back on like what were we doing? But I would seek help from a professional that specializes in transition, right? And you need to realize that if you're going to make that decision, something has to take a backseat. You cannot do it all. And your emotional well being and the health of your relationships are far more important than missing a couple years of saving, right? And I think that, like, And that's probably the single biggest mistake we made was we should have sought help knowing how many changes we were going to go through and said, how do we manage this? How do we navigate this until we can become stable? So that's the first thing. You need to give yourself some grace. Your new parents, you're sleep deprived, everything that comes with new parenting. So then give yourself grace. And then on the back half of it, once you've gotten through those two things, again, seek help, external help, and don't try to do it yourself because you won't see the things that somebody external will see. I have helped people realize that their car insurance was way, way too high.
Mhm.
And it's like little things like that can add up. So don't try to do it yourself. Seek help. Find somebody that specializes in the area that you're struggling with, whether it's budgeting or whether it's just getting back to investing, or you have all this money that you no longer have the time to pay attention to. And because you lose a lot of time when you have a kid, right?
Yeah.
And so something falls by the wayside. A lot of times it's finances because there you have a credit card and you have all these things, right? And so you typically push your finances to the side and say, well, I'll deal with them later. And then you forget to deal with them and that sort of thing. And that's what I've seen. And obviously I was in the business, so I didn't need that aspect of it. But like I think that would be the three stages that I would tell people to focus on. Find somebody to help you through the transition because it's way harder than you think it's going to be. Give yourself grace because you've gone through this huge transition. Next, seek help from the financial side, whether it's from somebody like you, Jackson, or whether it's a financial advisor because your net worth is a lot higher. You have a lot of assets that you don't really know how they should be working together. Don't think that the cost is prohibitive because there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you, even if you don't have exactly so-called investable assets. And I think that that's where a lot of people get hung up on. So, well, all my money's in my 401k. Like I don't have any. Nobody's going to want to talk to me. And they're right. There's a lot of people that don't want to talk to them. But there are a lot of us that are like, hey, we have different options for people like you because you still need help and we got into this business to help people. At the end of the day, we should be trying to help people in any way we can. And there's a lot of people out there that have found ways to do that that's effective for both us as well as them.
Thank you for sharing, Goose. I can tell just from talking to you that you have the same service mindset approach that I do, where anytime I'm working with a client, the goal is to help them and to vastly benefit them more than whatever they invested into working with me. And I think you're spot on there that there's so much that slips through the cracks. You can't keep track of it all on your own. And it's okay to ask for help. And it's also okay to spend money on yourself to get to a better place if you need to. Like, there's absolutely zero shame in doing that.
Yeah. Number one, spend some money on yourself, give yourself grace, and be the best person that you can be.
Goose, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an incredible conversation. So many great takeaways, both from an investing and financial standpoint and from a life perspective. So, thank you for joining me. I've really enjoyed our conversation. So glad you joined me today.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Goose, if people want to know more about what you do and they're interested in your services, where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. It is Goose Dunham. There's not many of us out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, you must have liked it. So hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.